What's up, folks? This is the weekend update. So it's Sunday night, right before bed, and I forgot to film this, so I'm going to film it right now. So I didn't technically forget. Worked on BrandGhost a lot over the weekend. I use a lot of AI support when I'm coding, and have found like this has been tremendously helpful for me because, I mean, a lot of different reasons, but I work a full time job, and sometimes it's like when there's motivation to go work on something like for BrandGhost is like sometimes not when I'm at a computer. And so instead of like, say I'm driving to work, I do a lot of code commute stuff now too. So it's not always like downtime. But when I have a moment and I think about something, instead of being like, and I get excited, instead of hoping that I'm still excited at some point later, when I can actually sit down and go do this, it's more of a matter of like I can fire off an issue to GitHub and assign it to Copilot, and this has varying degrees of success. Right, sometimes I've talked about this a whole bunch in on Code Commute for sure, but if I have really like I think a lot of us know this by now, but if you have really open ended things, like AI really sucks at it. But sometimes that's all I'm after. I'm like I have an idea and like I don't even know where I want to start with it, so cool, like Copilot, go build something random for it. And that's been kind of nice sometimes. To give you an example, I was like, I'm thinking about some stuff where we could have like automatic, call it like spammer detection, account signups and stuff like that, and have different signals and stuff that we could wire up, different notifications and things like that. And I was like, there's a whole bunch that I could do here, and I know AI is not going to go build what I want right away. Like I don't even know exactly what I want, but it would be cool if it could go build something and I could go read through it and get some ideas myself. So I've done things like that. I've talked about this before, where like giving it, I wanted to do like media processing pipelines that could be scaled up for converting video and pictures and stuff, and like I could go build that. It's going to take me some time, but there's like a million ways to go do that. And so part of it, some like at least for me, is like if I can see AI build something, generally I find it a lot easier for me to be like, that's something I don't like. And then other parts I'm like, I don't know if I love it, but I'm like, that's interesting. So it can be really helpful once I see some things put together and I'm like, I know that was a potential path, but like now that I see it, like, no thanks. And the amount of time I spent on that, just reading, right? So pretty cool, pretty handy. So I've been doing that a lot. But one of the challenges is, of course, like when I'm actually trying to get it to do real code for production, like we have paying customers and it's a live service, is like I'll ask it to build a feature or fix a bug or do something. And I know if like anyone watching this is going to be like skill issue. And I'm like, I get it. We can all be better at prompting and getting the context right. But like we're so early on this stuff. And sometimes it's extremely frustrating that you have, you don't change like a detail and AI seems to get it perfectly. And you're like, oh yeah, this is great. And then you repeat for the next thing and AI suddenly just goes off the rails. I've had it deleting code. I've had it suddenly forgetting how to format the file. I've had it, and I don't know if you've seen this like in Visual Studio, it's like updating the file. It has to touch like one spot and it goes like 1,500 lines down the file, just like doot, 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 like kind of doing nothing until it gets to where it needs to go to make like a one character tweak. But I've seen it do something like that. And then along the way, it's like, I'm just going to reformat this line randomly. I'm like, you literally randomly just broke other code for no reason. Like, thankfully, I have tests, but what the heck, right? So, and like, so I'm going to be told that's because my prompts aren't good. Sure. Point is, I'm getting to the point now where I'm like, I think I have been updating. Like, I have a custom agent based on there's some public documentation on GitHub from Microsoft for they have a bunch of example agents. So I've taken one of those, started tailoring it. I have Copilot instructions, and it still having problems, right? It builds and it runs the tests, still having problems. So I said, okay, some of the problems I'm seeing are recurring patterns. I should actually probably make like a real YouTube video on this because I think it's interesting. And so I actually, in bed the other night, last night, I went to so GitHub Copilot. They have like these like spaces, and because we have a cross repo, multi-repository product, I'm like, we have all the repos in there, and I can basically like feel like I'm talking to Chat GPT, except it has knowledge of my whole code base because we don't have whatever the OpenAI solution is like hooked up for our stuff. And I said, hey, I think I want to add analyzers into BrandGhost. And if you're not familiar with analyzers because you have no idea what I'm talking about, in .NET we have something called Roslyn, and we can build custom analyzers that look at the syntax of our code and can basically create rules like this should be a warning or a suggestion or an error. So that way, when you're typing stuff, if you know like IntelliSense, or I guess it's not IntelliSense, it's more like the syntax highlighting and stuff like that, you can build custom rules for that. And so I said, I think I need to start adding some analyzers. And then I said, can you look at my Copilot instructions, my custom agent, my documentation that I have in the repository, and the code patterns that I have across the code base? And can you make a bulleted list of suggestions? Don't implement the analyzers, but make a bulleted list of suggestions for things that would be good analyzers based on common patterns and the amount of sort of like impact in terms of surface area that we'd have. And it did. And so what was interesting is I had some in my mind, and I think like I was actually extremely impressed by this. And I find AI in this context is like probably one of the best uses for me, which is like it feels like I'm talking to someone else who knows what I'm trying to build. So having this conversation back and forth is really helpful. So it gave me this list, and it was like, you have these coding patterns, like they're used everywhere. You should do this. And you have some of these in your tests. And I can see that you have custom instructions to like always assert some types of tests or checks in your test this way, never do it this other way. And it was like, you could have an analyzer for that. So I sat there in bed for half an hour. This would have been so much easier at a computer. And I sat there and I just typed into my phone. I made like 10 GitHub issues. And they were, I think it was like 8 to 10 issues, all analyzer changes, all assigned to Copilot. So I could wake up in the morning and start going through them. And it did an awesome job. Obviously, I knew it wasn't going to get them perfectly, but I will make a video on this. I sat down, I pulled the branch and looked at how far it got. And then I played around with some of the code to see in my code base, like, is the analyzer catching the problems I expect? Right? I noticed on some changes, it would like made an analyzer that seemed like it was doing the right thing, but then I noticed it touched a whole bunch of code to go like fix the code, but it was really just breaking stuff. And I'm like, okay, did it go fix it because the analyzer's telling it that's broken now? So played around with that. But I think out of the 8 or 10, I think I got through 7 of them today and like landed them. So I'm hoping now and going forward, now that I have some of these and I have a pattern for it, I'm hoping I have a lot better guardrails in place. That way, when I'm asking AI to go build stuff for me, instead of being disappointed in like getting the code and being like, okay, despite every prompt I have saying like follow the existing patterns in the code base, and it just not doing that, I am hoping now that it has some literal guardrails. The code will not even compile unless it's following those. And what I'll do is if I start to see patterns emerging where I'm like, hey, I keep telling it, don't do this, right? Stop doing this. Then I should be able to go make an analyzer rule for it. So a good example is, and I've joked about this for a little bit, but I have in my Copilot instructions and my agent file and my documentation, I say, do not write the comments arrange, act, assert in the tests. And it always does it. Not always, but most of the time it does it, and I lose my mind because I could have a perfect PR and then it has a range act assert in the comments, and I'm like, I just don't want this pollution to keep propagating through my code base. So I could go write an analyzer that's like, don't do that. And so little things like that, all the way to more structural, risky things. And in fact, I caught a couple of like potential bugs that exist in the code because now there's static analysis that will check for them. So it helped me. I feel like it has to help Copilot when it's building stuff. So I think it's my big update. I'm going to be on call, backup, and then primary for the next 2 weeks. So it's going to be a little rough. And then in general, BrandGhost stuff is going well. We have a couple of, I think we have maybe a little bit too much work in progress, and we have stuff that's like 80 to 95% of the way there, but not turned on. And it's like I think we have to kind of go through and flip some switches to get that turned on for folks. And I'm going to make more BrandGhost specific videos. So that's one of the things that I feel like I can contribute more to easier is make a video like I'm doing right now, but walk through some social media stuff and actually show interesting things from BrandGhost and on social media. So be doing more of that. We'll see how these next couple weeks go with on-call. It's the afternoon shift, so maybe not so bad, but we'll see. Thanks for watching. Just a quick update. See you next time.